Now, welcome Carola Pesino, the Principal Specialist at the Fiscal Management Division of the Inter-American Development Bank. Thank you very much, Adela. Good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for taking part in our virtual event on inclusive government procurement and LGBT businesses. On behalf of the Inter-American Development Bank and its Fiscal Management Division, I am very pleased to give you a virtual welcome to this webinar, which intends to contribute to the dialogue on diversity and inclusion, especially in the year of the 50th anniversary of International LGBT Pride Day. And I would like to begin by recognizing and acknowledging our partners in this initiative, the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce of the US and IDB Globe, the LGBT Employee Resource Group of the IDB. I would also like to especially acknowledge the cooperation for this event of the representatives of the Public Service Commission of the State of Maryland, the LGBT Chambers of Commerce of the Dominican Republic and of Uruguay. I would also like to virtually welcome the heads of government procurement of the region, officials of international organizations like OAS and multilateral banks, and all colleagues of the IDB connected today, and especially the IDB LGBT community. Since the IDB is an organization dedicated to improving lives, diversity and inclusion are obviously very important matters, since we wish to improve the lives of all people in Latin America and the Caribbean, not only the lives of majority groups. We wish to reduce inequality in Latin America, which is among the highest in the world, unfortunately, and currently seriously impacted by the pandemic. And this also has to do with gender, ethnicity, disabilities, religion, all sorts of inequalities and inequities that affect minority groups. The commitment of the IDB to include gender and inclusiveness in its financing and activities is expressly reflected in its institutional strategy and in the 2019 to 2021 Diversity Action Plan. Today, I would like to highlight three milestones which are related to the progress of LGBT rights around the world, not just to recall the 50th anniversary of LGBT Pride Day, which is celebrated on the 27th of June, but also the different developments led to subsequent milestones, such as the gay marriage laws and rights given to LGBT people. And today, on the 15th of July, the Congress of my country, Argentina, enacted the gay marriage law. Argentina being the first Latin American country to have such a law, and the second one in the Americas after Canada, and I think it was the 10th country in the world. We were closely followed by Brazil and Uruguay, present today, and the struggle goes on. There are still a few countries that haven't recognized this, but we're still working on that. And I would also like to highlight the great importance of a US Supreme Court ruling, which only a month ago, another coincidence, said that the language used in the 1964 Civil Rights Law that banned sex-based discrimination also applies to discrimination on the grounds of sexual identity or gender identity. So today, this community enjoys protection throughout the United States at the workplace, and the affirmative action effect of this law has been very important in terms of improving the labor rights of women and African Americans in the US, and I hope it will have the same sort of impact for the benefit of the LGBT community. Let me tell you also on a personal note that I am an economist by training, specialized in labor relations. I trained at Chicago, and Gary Becker and James Heckman mentored me for my dissertation. They were subsequently Nobel Prize winners, but most importantly, they were both pioneers in the fight against discrimination. Actually, one of them, Gary Becker, was the one who wrote a dissertation on the economy of discrimination. This was published in 1957, and he taught us that the preference for discrimination does not only have an impact on minorities that are discriminated against, whether it be in terms of income, fewer health services, or education services, but it's also that the companies or businesses that discriminate that end up paying more by segregating in their labor forces. In other words, the damage does not only involve those discriminated against, but also those who discriminate end up shooting themselves in the foot because they diminish the value added in the economy. And as a result, GDP suffers. So discrimination has a great impact on the dignity and honor of people, the right to have income in accordance with people's talents, but it also has an impact on the businesses and on the countries that practice discrimination. In the case of women, we are looking at 50% of the population, and estimates suggest that if women had equal labor force participation to that of men with similar salaries, nowadays they get 30 or 40% less, the economy would be 26% more by 2025. We also have fewer chances of getting promoted or accessing important positions. And of course, I don't have time to go into detail on the multitude of issues that pose problems. LGBT people are estimated to be 3 to 6% of the population. So between 20 and 40 million LGBT people live in Latin America. And including us, counting us, and raising our profile is a first step towards recognition of our rights in view of the importance this has for the economy and the well-being of the community and countries we live in as a whole. Recently, authors have begun to deal extensively with the differences in quality of life between groups. And in fact, Lee Badger, an author, recently published her work talking about how so much talent can go to waste in the LGBT community. Again, 30 million people approximately in the Latin America. And the high wage differentials and other parameters that she studied lead to economic losses amounting to around 1% of GDP annually due to discrimination. And nearing the end, how does this tie in with government procurement? That is a question. Let me say that the Fiscal Management Division has been supporting governments in the region to improve the efficiency and quality of public spending. And given the importance of the government procurement sector in the economy of a country, accounting for some 30% of public spending, we regard it as a strategic tool in order to promote economic development and fiscal and social equity. By developing public policies that promote inclusion and diversity in the public procurement markets, you don't only foster equity, but you also contribute to efficiency. In one of our most recent flagship publications, Development in the Americas, we emphasize that the region exhibits great inefficiencies in public spending, on average 4.4% of GDP. Over 30% of the inefficiency is due to bad spending and corruption in public procurement for services, goods, and infrastructure. The region spent $450 billion on these contracts recently, and at the fiscal division I work at, we have calculated that 80 million is lost due to inappropriate spending and corruption. And part of the corruption is due to the fact that many of the contracts, and mostly in public works, are concentrated in a small and recurrent group of suppliers. We have some typical cases in Argentina and Brazil with recent scandals such as the Lava Jato and notebooks. And we have seen that there is kind of a vendors club that is very difficult to penetrate, and competition would be one of the most powerful channels to fight against this. So competition not only amongst efficient vendors, but also involving groups with higher ethical standards, less inclined to corruption. There's evidence that minority groups, for whatever reasons, are less inclined to corruption than well-established groups, as they have this great desire to be able to take part in procurement processes. So in order to have better prices for goods and services and reduce the inclination to corruption, governments should expand the universe of potential suppliers, for which they should develop programs for groups of businesses that are underrepresented in the public sector market. For instance, companies led by indigenous peoples, women, people with disabilities, or in this case, LGBT businesses. In the last 5 years, we have worked a lot to promote gender mainstreaming in public procurement, and now we wish to use what we have learned as part of this process to promote diversity and inclusion for the benefit of the LGBT business community in the region. Hosting this webinar has been a great opportunity to explore state-of-the-art initiatives in this field, and we wish to showcase the success there's been in the United States to the work of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce and the inclusive procurement program of the state of Maryland, one of the many success stories led by the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce of the US. And we would also like to showcase the examples of the chambers of commerce of the Dominican Republic and Uruguay, which are launching initiatives with vast potential to promote the participation of this business segment in public contracts. We hope this will be the first step towards establishing a technical and fruitful long-term dialogue in order to enhance diversity and inclusion in the public procurement market with a focus on efficiency. I would also like to take this opportunity to say thank you for the internal support at the bank, the Gender and Diversity Division, as well as KIC, the Knowledge, Innovation and Communication Sector, and the procurement team of the Fiscal Division group, which has organized this event, and with Leslie Harper wearing two hats as one of the experts on procurement and our focal point for diversity and inclusion at the Fiscal Division. And to conclude, I wish to especially thank all participants today for lending us their support and giving us of the time for this event. So we can get started. I shall now give the floor very willingly to my colleague Luis Lopez Torres, President of IDB Globe, the LGBT Employee Resource Group at the IDB. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carola. Good morning to all authorities and participants connected today. I would like to briefly tell you about the group I preside over, IDB Globe, and stress the commitment of the IDB to diversity and inclusion and the importance this event today has for the community of LGBT employees of the bank. IDB Globe is classified as an employee resource group. We are a group of LGBT individuals, both partners and members. We have a right to speak and vote, and we are also part of the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Group. We have also come to be categorized as a leader group or leading group in terms of diversity, since we're always at the forefront of all matters of interest to the LGBT community. We are also pioneers in promoting diversity and inclusion within the community of international organizations. We have contacts and strategic partnerships with nearly all multilateral organizations. We are regularly in touch with them, including WB Globe, IFC Globe, OAS, PAHO, IMF, and other ERG globes of the federal government. IDB Globe leads and actively participates in activities and initiatives of all kinds. We actually cover academic, professional, current affairs, and social activities, among others. By the way, we are now working on a campaign which we will be launching soon, so stay tuned. The activities we conduct have to do with networking, professional relations, and mentoring. And these are initiatives that are highly valued by our members and also by bank management. Globe has an active role in terms of advisory and counseling services, always on the basis of a non-discrimination agenda aimed at equality. As a president of Globe, I can assure you that the feeling of identity and of being able to be who you are is increasingly stronger and genuine within the group and IDB. The commitment of the IDB to include diversity and inclusion has become institutionalized and was approved by the board in 2012 and was ratified by senior management, including the president himself. We are very pleased and proud of having come this way, but we are also aware of the road ahead. On corporate matters, we have made great progress and believe there is vast potential for development within the bank's operations area. This LGBT initiative in the field of government procurement, we think is crucial and a wonderful opportunity to become more actively involved in operations matters. The field of procurement is a mixed niche, which actually includes both fronts of the bank. On the one hand, corporate procurement and project procurement on the other. We also have significant precedents in these fields that can provide guidance, such as the inclusion of the gender perspective in procurement. This can be a great starting point, provide guidance, and use this experience to be successful going forward. As a group, IDB Globe wishes to ratify interest and continue to cooperate in coming phases in order to be able to run operations in the near future in which there are present and active LGBT elements. We believe that inclusive government procurement can represent that first major step. So, in view of all of this, in my own name and on behalf of IDB Globe, I would like to thank you very much for your support and for taking part in this virtual event today. So I would now like to give the floor to Mary.